Tonight on the Dreamy Physicist, a whisper travels not through wind or sound, but through space, vast, silent, and endless. It begins not with a voice, but with a bond between two particles that never let go. Hi there. I'm so glad you're here. Let's take a quiet journey together into the deep, invisible threads that tie the universe in place. Let's begin with a whisper between stars. Oh. You lie still, and the world quiets around you. The hum of the day fades into a softer kind of silence, the kind that holds you gently, like starlight filtered through a sleeping forest. As your breath slows, your thoughts begin to float, untethered, like tiny boats on a velvet tide. And somewhere just beyond the veil of sleep, the universe begins to whisper, not with words, not with sound, but with something older, something deeper, a connection carried in the very bones of the cosmos. You are floating now, cradled by the dark. A quiet landscape stretches outward in every direction, not empty, but full of possibility. This is the space between things, the hush between atoms, the quiet pause before a thought begins. And here in this gentle dark, two particles appear, tiny, invisible, born in the same breath of light. Perhaps they sprang from the same star's dying side, or from the energy released when two ancient photons collided. Their origin doesn't matter. What matters is their bond, a secret thread that joins them across distance, across time. They drift apart, as all things do. One veers left, the other right. One dances through the heat of a newborn galaxy. The other falls into the quiet gravity of a distant moon. And yet, something between them holds. When one turns, the other feels it. When one shifts, the other listens. Even across light years, they move as one, as if distance has no meaning, as if space is only an illusion drawn across a deeper truth. You breathe, slow and curious, as your mind drifts into their strange connection. This, you learn, is quantum entanglement, a word too sharp for something so delicate. It is not a tether. It is not a chain. It is more like a melody hummed by two instruments, still echoing the same note, even after they've been placed in separate rooms. It's not that they talk to each other. It's that they are somehow still the same. You imagine a feather falling here, and another rising instantly on the other side of the universe. You imagine two mirrors, tilted just right, so perfectly aligned that what reflects in one appears in the other, even if they've never seen each other's like. And you begin to wonder, if such things are possible with particles, what else might be quietly entangled? What else might carry this strange, silent thread? Your mind floats gently now, like a leaf on water. No rush, just drift. This connection is fragile, but real. So real, in fact, that we've seen it in our deepest experiments. We split photons, send them traveling in opposite directions, and watch with awe as they respond to each other in perfect sync. Change one, and the other changes too. It is not magic. It is not a trick. It is simply what is. Entanglement doesn't send messages. It doesn't break the speed of light. Instead, it suggests something far more mysterious, that the two were never truly apart. That distance is not what we think it is. That separation may not be as absolute as it feels. And here, tucked beneath your blanket and stardust thoughts, that idea wraps around you like warmth. Because if particles can stay connected, if their fates can remain bound even when the stars move between them, then maybe the universe is not a place of isolation, but one of quiet, persistent unity. Maybe, just maybe, you are not as alone as you sometimes feel. The particles that make up your body once burned in stars. They were born in pairs, danced in early light, split across cosmic seas, and came together again. Now, as your breath, your skin, your heart beating gently in the dark, you are part of this pattern. You are woven into this whisper. And as you drift further into this quiet night, the echo of their bond still hums softly, somewhere just beyond the reach of thought. In the stillness between stars, something is calling, not loudly, not urgently, but clearly. And maybe the shimmer is already here. Maybe it lives not just between particles, but between moments, like the way one memory leans gently into another. Maybe this quiet correspondence is the universe reminding itself that everything once touched still echoes. Even now, as you lie in the stillness, your own atoms hum with the legacy of entanglement. They've spun through suns and silence, through time and temperature. They've collided, split, entangled, and rejoined, not just as dust, but as intention. You are a gathering of many threads, a constellation of connections older than memory. Your breath carries the echo of quantum choices, of twin particles lost and found. And as you listen with your whole body, you begin to feel the soft vibration of belonging. This is not something to solve. It is something to sit with, to rest inside, like a warm stone held in your palm, still radiating from the sun. Because here, where science meets sleep and wonder meets stillness, you remember something important. The universe does not need to be loud to be magnificent. Sometimes, it speaks most clearly in its quietest gestures. And as you float through this whisper, held gently by a truth too deep for words, the fabric of reality feels less rigid. It begins to soften, to fold, to welcome you. You are not just witnessing the dance of particles, you are dancing with them. And soon, you'll begin to see what happens when this dance becomes a rule, a pattern deeper than chance, a hidden code etched beneath everything, a rule book waiting in silence beneath all you know. And in the next quiet breath, we'll begin to read it. The stars are still watching. You feel their patient glow, not as light, but as presence. You're floating again, gently held in the dark between dreams and waking. And the question that lingers from before begins to glow softly in your chest. If the universe whispers through connections, then what laws let it whisper at all? In the hush of quantum entanglement, you saw particles dance in ways that felt like poetry, moving in perfect time across impossible space. But now, you begin to wonder what choreographed that dance, what lies beneath it, what tells a particle where to go, when to spin, how to behave, even when no one's watching. As you sink deeper into stillness, the question becomes not a puzzle, but a path. You close your eyes, and the scene around you reshapes. The stars fade, and in their place, not emptiness, but code, a quiet rain of rules, invisible, soft as breath. This is not the kind of rule book you've seen before. There are no pages, no instructions, only patterns shimmering like frost across glass, shifting like moonlight on water. You begin to feel them more than see them. They're not fixed, but they are reliable, not rigid, but real, like a rhythm heard through the soles of your feet. These rules are the foundation of quantum mechanics, the deep structure beneath the dance. They are strange, even unsettling at first, because unlike the rules of your everyday world, where a ball bounces and a shadow falls, the quantum world plays by different logic. Here, certainty is a myth, and possibility is everything. Particles don't follow a single path. They take every path at once until the moment they're observed, and then, just then, they choose. Imagine tossing a coin, and instead of landing heads or tails, it floats, shimmering, both at once, until your gaze fixes on it, and only then does it decide. This is called superposition, a state of maybe, state of and woven into this odd magic is another strange rule, that watching changes the thing you're watching. It's called the observer effect, not because you force the universe to act, but because your presence joins the pattern, like touching a spider web and feeling the whole world tremble. You, too, are part of the code, not outside of it, but inside, not separate from the rules, but shaped by them. You begin to understand that in the quantum world, the line between what is and what might be is always soft. The universe doesn't move like a ticking clock. It flows like music, with probability for rhythm and uncertainty for melody. It is not chaos. It is not confusion. It is possibility patiently unfolding. These rules, the ones beneath reality, they don't restrict. They allow. They leave room. They invite. Like a script with open endings. Like a poem that changes depending on who reads it. Like a dream that can be dreamed in more than one way. And this too feels familiar, because inside your own mind, possibility lives. Every choice you make, every word you speak, every thought that blooms, is not a single line drawn in ink, but a garden of maybe. And just like a particle, you collapse into one version of yourself, moment by moment, decision by decision, breath by breath. You begin to see it now, the connection between your choices and the particle's paths. The universe is not a rigid machine. It is a field of openness, a playground of probabilities, and something deeper still guides those probabilities. Not chance alone, but patterns hidden in the math. Patterns that tell us how likely one outcome is and how rare another might be. This is the rule book. Mathematical, beautiful, strange. Not written in ink, but written in the way particles move, in the shimmer of probability fields, in the silent logic that underlies even chaos. And the more we look, the more the rules reveal themselves, not because they change, but because we are finally still enough to hear them. But even these elegant patterns, these soft, shimmering possibilities, come with limits. A particle cannot have its position and momentum perfectly known at the same time, not because we lack precision, but because the universe itself does not allow it. The sharper we see one, the blurrier the other becomes. This is not a flaw in our tools. It is not a trick of perspective. It is a law woven into the very threads of being. It's called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, and it tells us something deeply humbling, that reality itself has a kind of privacy, a softness at its edge, a place where knowing fades into not knowing. You begin to feel this uncertainty, not as confusion, but as a kind of grace. It allows for gentleness, for surprise, for change, just as your own life holds moments that cannot be predicted. Your thoughts, your dreams, your quiet becoming, so too does the quantum world refuse to be pinned down. It breathes, it shimmers, it waits, and maybe it listens. You rest now, in the hush of this hidden order, not carved in stone, but written in waves. You imagine the particles gently drifting through probability, choosing not one path, but many, not one truth, but a sea of maybe. And in that sea, you float, unafraid, because beneath the rule book, beneath even the math, there is a deeper current, a freedom written into the structure of things, a freedom that says, you do not need to know it all. You only need to feel it unfolding. And as the silence thickens, a new question emerges. If uncertainty is part of reality's rulebook, what does it mean for the future? Can we ever truly predict it? Or are we destined always to wonder? Just a little more than we know? And with that, the whisper becomes a breath. The breath becomes a pause. And in the pause, uncertainty opens its gentle door. The stars return as memory, gentle and distant, like fireflies blinking through fog. And you are floating again, not upward or down, but inward, deeper into the dream of the cosmos, into the quiet truth beneath your breath, that nothing begins in isolation. Everything touches something else. Last night, you listened to the hidden rule book, a code not of commands, but of permission, rules that let the universe shimmer with possibility. Tonight, that shimmer gathers into strands, invisible threads, humming through space, through time, through you. And you begin to understand something strange and beautiful, that the particles that make the world and make you do not live alone. They are born together, move together, changed together. Entanglement, they call it. But that word is only a hint. The truth is softer, more intimate. To be entangled is not to be tied with rope. It's to share a heartbeat, even across galaxies. You drift now to the earliest times, moments after the Big Bang, when everything was dense, hot, and close. Particles flared into existence, not as solitary sparks, but as twins, triplets, tangled constellations of possibility. Imagine two photons, born from the same breath of light. One goes left, one goes right. They race apart at the speed of light. And yet, even across light years of separation, what you do to one is reflected in the other. Instantly, no message sent, no time passed, just knowing, a silent echo, as if distance had never mattered. This is not science fiction. This is experiment. This is fact. You lie in stillness, and the fabric of reality reveals itself, woven not from things, but from relationships. Particles are not little dots. They are waves, possibilities, loops of interaction. They do not exist in space. They help make space what it is. And when they become entangled, they are no longer two things. They are one system, a whole that cannot be split without breaking the story. It's like music. Strike one string, and another hums, not because they touch, but because they are tuned to the same secret. And now you feel it, how your body, too, holds echoes. Your atoms have danced with starlight. Your breath carries the history of oceans, of forests, of the first exhalation of life. You are made of connection. And if particles can remain entangled across space, perhaps, so can we. What if love, too, is a kind of entanglement? What if memory leaves quantum traces? What if to be close is not about proximity, but about shared beginnings? You think of someone you miss, not with pain, just with quiet recognition. And perhaps, even now, a particle inside you remembers a particle once near them. Not in a magical way, in a real way, a physical, mathematical, aching way. Because the more scientists look, the more they find entanglement everywhere. In electrons, in photons, in the spin of atoms used in quantum computers, even in small organisms. Some suspect, though we don't yet fully understand. It is not an exception, it is a feature. And suddenly, the universe seems less like a scattered collection of stars, and more like a single, unfolding thing. One breath, one unfolding, one great, entangled dream. Your heartbeat slows. The air feels like velvet. Time stretches, and you remember Einstein again, troubled by this idea. He could not believe that nature would behave this way. But the experiments came, over and over, confirming the impossible. Entanglement is real, and with it, the idea that information might not be transmitted at all, but simply shared, already part of a whole, long before the question was asked. In this view, cause and effect blur, before and after dissolve. It's as if the universe remembers what it once was and plays it forward in whispers. You think of your own memories, the way certain moments stay bright, the way smells bring back places, and songs carry whole years. What if your memory is entangled with time? What if who you are now is always gently linked to who you were? And what if that means you are never truly lost to yourself? Even in confusion, even in sorrow, some thread holds on, invisible but strong. You are a web of stories, a galaxy of connections. And perhaps, just perhaps, your consciousness is not contained in your skull, but shared with the world around you. You think of forests and their hidden root networks. You think of birds who feel the Earth's magnetic field, of whales who call across oceans. Is this, too, entanglement? And if it is, then what would it mean to live with that awareness? To walk through the world, knowing you are tied, not only to your choices, but to every other thread? Would you speak more gently? Would you listen more deeply? Would you feel more whole? The question floats in the air like a feather. And then, a deeper thought. If entanglement holds across distance, what about time? Can two events, far apart in the timeline of the universe, still echo in each other? Could something in the past reach forward, like a wave traveling through probability to shape what is yet to come. It may sound like magic, but quantum physics allows for such wonder, and your imagination, drifting now in sleep's arms, knows how to welcome it. There is no sharp edge between what is real and what is meaningful, between particle and poem, between fact and feeling. Tonight, you rest inside that space, the space where connection hums beneath silence, where particles remember their birthplaces, where you remember, too. And just as you begin to drift, a final ripple touches your mind. If the universe is a web of entanglement, a vast and delicate lattice of shared becoming, then what happens when we try to measure it, when we turn the gaze inward, when we ask not only what is, but how we know it? Because there is something strange that happens when we look too closely, kind of unknowing, a soft blur, a boundary we cannot cross without changing what we see. And on the other side of that veil waits uncertainty. And so you drift onward, the threads of connection still humming, toward the language of the unknown, and the beauty of not knowing fully, just yet. The night is still again, breath slow, muscles loose. The hush between thoughts stretches wide, like the sky after rain. You float now in the soft glow of curiosity, not the urgent kind, but the kind that lingers like mist, quiet and stubborn. Something from the last dream still echoes. Entanglement, the invisible thread that binds particles and perhaps even hearts across vastness. But tonight, the thread tightens, becomes stranger, older, spookier. It begins with a question so small, so precise, it broke open the universe. Can the act of observing something change what it is? You lie still, listening. Imagine now a pair of tiny particles spinning in opposite directions, like twins born spinning away from each other. They were once part of a single thing, a single moment. Now they fly apart, across time, across space, but their connection remains. It hums. If you measure one, you instantly know the state of the other, even if it's light years away. That's strange enough. But it gets stranger, because until you measure that particle, it exists in a blur of possibilities, many spins, many directions, all at once. Only when you look does it decide who it is, and the other one, far, far away, decides in that same instant, as if your choice to look reaches across the universe, touching something you never touched. Einstein didn't like that. He called it spooky action at a distance, because to him, and to many, this wasn't how the world was supposed to work. Things were supposed to be local. If you tug a rope, the pull moves at a speed. It doesn't jump instantly, but quantum entanglement doesn't wait. It doesn't travel. It simply is. Two things. One truth. You drift now, weightless in the idea, the way leaves drift on a quiet pond. In your mind's eye, you see it. Two entangled particles, light years apart. A scientist measures one, a spin upward, and instantly the other aligns, a spin downward. Opposite, balanced, connected. But here's the real twist. Until the measurement, neither spin was fixed. Each particle lived in a state of uncertainty. Probability cloud. Not either slash or, but both slash. And only your act of observation collapses the cloud, turns maybe into is. And in that moment, somehow, the other particle knows. How? No one knows. No signal is sent. No time passes. No force is exchanged. And yet, reality adjusts. Together. It feels like a whisper shared across an impossible divide. A secret pass through silence. A spooky connection, yes, but also a gentle one. Soft, silent, sovereign. You begin to see why this matters. Because it reshapes how we think about the universe, about distance, about separation, about what's real. If two entangled particles remain one system, then space doesn't divide them. Then location is not fundamental. Then, perhaps, the universe is less like a map and more like a poem. A poem in which verses rhyme across pages. A song in which distant notes still echo each other. And if that's true, then what about you? Could parts of you be entangled with places you've left behind? With people you've loved? With choices you've made? You think of that moment, years ago, when you stood at the edge of a decision. One path taken, one left behind. What if both paths still hum inside you? What if some deeper version of you, not confined to space or time, remembers both? You rest your hand over your heart, and it beats, steady, quiet, like a pendulum keeping rhythm with the cosmos. And you wonder, could your consciousness be entangled too? Some scientists think the brain might use quantum processes, tiny effects, delicate balances, enough, perhaps, to let thought and quantum mystery brush fingertips. It's not proven, but it is beautiful, and beauty, too, is a kind of evidence. You drift now through more experiments, famous ones. The Bell test, quantum teleportation. Particles entangled, measured, and found to defy every classical expectation. Again and again, the spooky connection holds. You cannot use it to send messages faster than light, but you can use it to show that the universe is not made of separate pieces. It's made of relationships, and those relationships are not bound by distance or even by time. Some studies hint that entanglement might work backward, as if the future can shape the past, not with force, with alignment. Like two dancers choreographed by a music only they can hear. You feel this deeply now, in your breath, in your bones, that you are not just a body floating through space. You are a ripple in a sea of connections. And some of those connections stretch beyond what you can see. They are spooky, yes, but not frightening. They are reminders that what you touch touches you, that what you see sees you, that no thought, no feeling is ever truly alone. You imagine two people, oceans apart, each looking up at the same moon, each thinking of the other. And in that shared thought, some quiet thread is tugged, not proven, but not impossible, not measurable, but meaningful. And perhaps that is what this spooky connection teaches most of all, that mystery is not the enemy of truth, it is its guardian. that not everything must be known to be trusted. That wonder is a kind of understanding. You breathe in. The night air feels softer now, as if even the stars are listening. And a final thought stirs. If entanglement can link particles, and particles make atoms, and atoms make life, then might the entire universe be one great entangled whole? A single breathing story, telling itself in stars and sleep and science. You settle into that question, not needing an answer, only the feeling of belonging to something vast and intimate. The spooky connection lingers, not as fear, but as comfort. As the curtain of sleep begins to fall, one last idea rises. If observing one particle can shape its twin, what happens when the universe observes itself? When consciousness meets matter? When we look inward and find everything looking back? Oh. And so you drift onward into the blur between self and cosmos, toward the strange mirror of awareness itself. The world quiets again. You're lying still, as if the air itself is pausing, soft, waiting, weightless. Your breath moves slowly, and with it, your thoughts begin to loosen. You return to the edge of the dream you've been following for nights now, where science hums like a lullaby and mystery feels warm. Tonight, you are not chasing answers. You are learning how the universe responds to being noticed. You are learning to measure the unseen, not the loud kind of measuring, with rulers or timers or machines that clatter. This is a gentler kind, a whisper of attention that can change the very nature of what is. In the quantum world, everything dances in a blur of possibility. Particles don't sit still. They don't declare themselves to be here or there. They live in a cloud of maybe, fog of could be, until you look. That moment when your gaze, or your tool, or your presence touches the system, something collapses. The fog vanishes. The particle chooses. Or rather, the world chooses with you. And that act, the act of measurement, is not passive. It's not like taking a photograph from across the room. It's more like touching water. The ripples come because you ask them to. You don't just find reality, you help shape it. This is the quantum measurement problem. And it is not just a scientific puzzle. It is a story about what it means to witness. Picture a particle floating unseen. It spins, but not in one direction, in many at once. A superposition, they call it. Not either or, but both at the same time. Only when you measure it does it resolve into one path, one answer. It is as though nature holds her breath, waiting to see what question you'll ask before she replies. And her reply is shaped by your question. You are not separate from what you observe. You are part of the unfolding. A note inside the song you're trying to hear. It's delicate, almost poetic, and yet it's real. The double slit experiment proves it, again and again. Imagine this. You fire single particles, maybe photons, maybe electrons, toward a barrier with two tiny slits. Behind the slits is a screen. If you don't look to see which slit each particle goes through, they behave like waves. They interfere with each other, rippling, overlapping, creating a beautiful pattern of light and dark. But if you do look, If you place a detector to measure which slit the particle passes through, the interference vanishes, the pattern collapses, the wave becomes a particle, the blur becomes a point, the dance stops. Why? No one fully knows. But somehow, the act of measuring changes the outcome. The observer is not separate. The universe is not a stage. It is a mirror, and every glance, every question, leaves a trace. You lie still now, sensing the weight of this idea, how quietly powerful it is, because it means your attention matters, not just in daily life, but in the fabric of reality itself. To measure something, even gently, is to interact with it. To be present is to leave a fingerprint on the world. You think now about the tools we've built: microscopes, telescopes, particle accelerators, to reach into realms our eyes could never go. Each one is an extension of our curiosity. Each one, a question cast into the darkness. And each answer depends on how we asked. Even in the smallest systems, atoms, quarks, the ghostly neutrinos that pass through you every second, our gaze can change the script. You feel, perhaps for the first time, just how intimate science truly is. It is not just about knowledge. It is about relationship. You and the world are not on opposite sides of the glass. You are inside the same breath. And now, another thought tiptoes in. If measuring something changes it, what happens when you measure yourself? You think of self-awareness, of watching your own thoughts, of feeling your feelings from a half step away. That, too, is measurement, and it changes you. The moment you observe your breath, it slows. The moment you name your emotion, it shifts. The act of noticing is never neutral, and that, too, is quantum in spirit, a reflection of the same truth, that to witness is to participate. You are not only the dreamer, you are part of the dream. Even the brain may obey these subtle rules. Some scientists believe that consciousness and quantum effects may be linked, that decisions and awareness may arise from processes still unknown, too delicate for classical explanation. It's a frontier, and you are drifting at its edge now, like a leaf on a tide of stars. No one knows for sure how far this mystery goes, but you feel it, the way your body softens when you bring attention to it, the way silence deepens when you listen, the way even your thoughts grow quieter as you rest inside this soft unfolding. And maybe, just maybe, that's why quantum theory feels so dreamlike, because it is shaped by the same thing that shapes dreams: awareness, the quiet kind, the kind you carry into sleep. You drift now in that strange place between certainty and possibility, and you wonder, if observation shapes reality, what kind of world are we co-creating each time we ask a question? And what happens to the unseen when we choose not to look? Does it stay there, floating in its maybes? Or does it dissolve until called again? These are the kinds of questions science does not always answer, but they are the kinds that soothe the soul, because they remind you that reality is not a cold machine. It is a conversation, a slow, mysterious unfolding between what is and what could be. You settle now, breath even, held in that conversation, knowing that even in rest, you are part of something elegant, even in sleep. You are asking softly, and the universe always is listening. Ah, and somewhere in that listening, a deeper question begins to stir. What if what we call chaos isn't random at all, but the dance of patterns too deep to measure just yet? Tonight begins like a soft sigh, the kind the sky lets out after holding the day in its chest. You lie still, eyes closed, mind unfolding like a petal at dusk. Somewhere beyond the quiet hum of your breath, the universe waits. Not loud, not urgent, just present, a rhythm beneath your thoughts, beating softly in the bones of everything. And tonight, you return to that rhythm, following its pulse into one of the strangest truths we've ever found, that particles, the smallest whispers of matter, can stay connected no matter how far they drift apart. You first felt this in the dream of entanglement. Now you feel it deeper, more intimately, like a message between twin stars, a communication that defies space and shrugs at time. You whisper from one distant heart to another. In the everyday world, we trust in speed. To call a friend, to send a signal, we count on time, on the journey from here to there. Even light, fast as it is, takes time to travel. From the moon, 1.3 seconds. From the sun, 8 minutes. From the nearest star, 4 years. Distance demands delay, but not in the quantum world. There, a message doesn't travel, it just is. Instant. You imagine two particles created together, entangled like twins. One stays near, the other sails off through machines, through atmosphere, through silence, miles or light years away. They are measured, and in that instant, not a second later, not a breath delayed, one particle's state reflects the other's. It's not copying, it's not messaging, it's simply connection, perfect and immediate, as if they share a knowing beyond space. Scientists test this again and again, across cities, across mountains, even between satellites and Earth, and always. The result is the same. No signal, no time lapse, just symmetry, just whispers between distant hearts. You breathe into that idea now. Feel how strange and soft it is. Because this isn't just about physics. It's about trust. It's about the idea that something once together is never truly apart. And isn't that, in some quiet way, what love tries to teach us? That even when far away, there is still a thread? In science, they call it non-locality, a fancy word, but you can feel its meaning without the math. It means that some things don't care about distance, that cause and effect may not always be separated by space, that sometimes the fabric of reality folds itself up so that two faraway places touch, like hands pressed together across the curve of a globe. You drift now to the experiments, to the real, careful tests, the ones designed to prove this isn't just coincidence. They close loopholes, they shield detectors, they separate clocks by miles, and still, the entangled particles whisper in sync. This is not science fiction. It is science at its most delicate, measured, repeated, confirmed. And yet, It feels like magic, not the kind with wands, but the kind that lives in things we don't yet understand. Some say this instant connection could one day build unbreakable codes, a quantum internet, where data can't be stolen because it's never truly sent. Others dream of teleportation, not of bodies, but of states, of information itself, leaping across space by simply being known. But you don't need wires or labs to feel the beauty of it. You just need breath and stillness. And the idea that connection does not always require closeness. You think of someone you miss, someone you haven't touched in years, but who still moves quietly through your thoughts. You wonder, could some part of your being still be entangled with theirs? It's not something science can prove, but it is something your heart can feel. That perhaps, when you think of them, they shift a little without knowing why, not with force, but with resonance, like strings on opposite ends of a piano, vibrating in sympathy. The quantum world invites this kind of dreaming, not because it promises magic, but because it reminds us that reality is weirder and more wonderful than we ever expected. It asks us to let go of old assumptions, that space always divides, that time always flows one way, that objects are separate and complete on their own. No, in this world, the truest world we've found so far, everything is part of something else, and to know one part is to gently touch the rest. Like ripples on a pond, you cannot touch one without moving the whole. And maybe, just maybe, that means you are never truly alone. Even now, as you lie here, wrapped in quiet, with only the stars watching, somewhere, a particle paired with another is shifting with you, a cosmic echo, a distant heart feeling your whisper. You won't feel it in your skin. You won't hear it with your ears. But the connection is real, mathematically, physically, lovingly. You float in this idea now, not to solve it, but to rest in it, to feel the comfort of a world woven with instant messages of belonging, of particles that remember one another even when scattered by galaxies. And you wonder, if the universe is full of these hidden threads, then what else might be tied together? Could moments be entangled? Could choices echo? Could time itself be stitched with memory and possibility? It is not a question to answer now. It is a question to dream with. So you breathe in deeply, softly, and you let the thought settle beside you that some connections defy space and others defy explanation. But both can be trusted. You are not separate. You are part of a pattern so wide, so deep, it can only be felt in silence, in the space between questions, in the whisper between distant hearts. And if particles can stay linked through space, could they also stay linked through time? That is the next mystery you drift toward, the curious nature of cause, effect, and clocks that do not always tick in sync. The night holds you gently again. You lie still, quiet, listening, the hum of your breath, the warmth of your body, the pull of gravity grounding you to earth, and behind it all, a deeper rhythm, one you can't quite hear with your ears, but feel in your chest, like a soft drum under the skin of space. It's the rhythm of connection. Tonight, you return to it, not to find individual truths, but to follow the threads that stitch them together. Because slowly, gently, you are beginning to see reality is not a collection of things. It is a fabric, and every thread in that fabric is a relationship. We used to think the universe was made of tiny parts, particles like marbles, separate and solid. But we've looked closer, and the deeper we peer, the more the marbles vanish. What's left is interaction, touch, spin, attraction, entanglement. Nothing exists alone. Everything arises through contact, through how one thing responds to another. It's not just what is, it's how things relate that makes them real. You see this in quantum fields. Particles, after all, are not little nuggets. They are vibrations in invisible fields, ripples in something deeper. An electron is not a thing, it is a pattern, a note in a song that only plays when the universe listens. And like music, it only means something because of the harmony, because of the other notes around it. You feel this now, in your bones, not just your thoughts. You are not just a body. You are a set of relationships to gravity, to air, to light, to time and temperature, to memory and motion. Your atoms come from stars. Your thoughts echo your culture. Your cells speak in molecular dialects passed down for billions of years. Nothing about you exists in isolation, and nothing about the universe does either. In physics, we find this again and again. Forces aren't things, they're interactions. Gravity is not a pull from afar. It's the curve of space caused by mass. Electromagnetism isn't a charge floating through air. It's a field shaping and shaped by other fields. Even the strong and weak nuclear forces, the ones holding atoms together and letting them decay, are just expressions of symmetry and imbalance. It's not particles that matter most. It's the weaving between them. Like threads in a tapestry, the beauty isn't in a single fiber, but in how they cross, bend, tie. And maybe this explains why measurement in quantum mechanics changes the outcome. Because it's not a system being observed. It's a system being touched, altered, woven into a new moment. Each act of noticing pulls a new thread. Each question asked reshapes the pattern. And so, your attention is not passive. It is part of the weave. You shape reality by interacting with it, by being here, by wondering. Even the laws of physics, those quiet, constant rules, may arise from deeper patterns. Mathematicians speak of symmetry and invariance, of transformations that leave something unchanged. But even symmetry is a relationship, a kind of balance across space, or time, or form. You think now of entanglement, how two particles can become one system, how measuring one defines the other instantly. They are not separate beings. They are a joint wave, a single stitch stretched across the fabric. And perhaps the universe itself is like that, a vast quilt of entangled threads, woven so tightly that the whole is more real than any piece. You breathe into that thought. Feel the softness of it. Feel how it lifts the weight of separateness. Because if everything is connection, then you are never outside the pattern. You are part of it, part of the weave, not an observer, a participant. This is not metaphor alone. Even space and time, the stage we thought everything danced upon, may not be fundamental. Some physicists now believe that space itself emerges from quantum entanglement. But where things are is determined not by position, but by how strongly they're linked. The more entangled two regions are, the closer they feel. Distance becomes a measure of relationship, and time may emerge from the growth of entanglement, from the unfolding of one pattern into another, a kind of cosmic embroidery, one stitch added after the next. So when you ask what reality is made of, the answer may not be matter. It may be weaving, patterns of probability, layers of interaction, moments stacked like fabric, softly folding into one another. You think now about your own life, about how you are formed, not just by your DNA, but by every person you've loved, every question you've asked, every story you've believed. You are not a lone thread. You are a braid, woven with culture, language, emotion, touch. And in that way, you are like everything else. Even stars are shaped by what surrounds them. Gravity from neighboring suns, clouds of gas drifting through the galactic spiral. Even black holes, those singular monsters, are defined by what falls in. Nothing exists by itself, not fully. And maybe that's the gentlest truth of all, that to be real is to be in relationship, to be held in the silent embrace of all that is. You feel this now. As sleep begins to draw near, you are not falling away from the world. You are drifting deeper into it, into the net that holds you, soft and endless. Each breath, a stitch, each thought, a thread, and all of it woven together into something beautiful, something that does not break when pulled, but sings. And still, you wonder, if all of reality is made of connection, then what holds that connection? What lies beneath the weave? What is the loom on which the cosmos spins its song? You float toward that question now, where threads begin to twist into spirals, and spirals into stars. In the next chapter, you'll follow gravity itself, the curve of space, the sculptor of time, the silent architect of structure. It's late now. The stars have gathered. The hush of night wraps gently around you, and the world lets go. You're drifting again, not away, but inward, toward something ancient, something silent, that once made the universe shiver. There's no wind in space, no air to carry sound. But if there were, you might still hear it. The bell. A bell not made of bronze, but of pure question, not struck by hand, but by wonder. You may not know its name, but its ringing still echoes through every mystery we chase. It's called Bell's theorem, and it changed everything. But before that bell could ring, there was a tension, discomfort, the kind that presses gently on the minds of the curious until something gives. It began with Einstein. He couldn't quite accept what quantum physics seemed to say, that particles behaved like dice, that measurement didn't just reveal, it created, that two entangled particles could respond instantly across space without touching. Spooky action at a distance, he called it. He thought there had to be more, something hidden, a secret tucked inside each particle, determining its fate. Code, a clockwork, a truth we just didn't yet see. He wasn't alone. Many believed the same. Surely the universe, so elegant and precise, couldn't be random, couldn't be spooky. So the idea of hidden variables grew. Invisible settings inside each particle, guiding their behavior quietly, like instructions sealed in envelopes. That way, when two entangled particles were measured, they didn't talk to each other across the void. They just revealed what had always been true. It felt safer, more classical, more real. But in 1964, John Bell asked a deeper question. He wondered, if those hidden variables exist, could we test for them? Could we prove whether the universe is secretly local and determined, or fundamentally entangled and strange? And so he designed a thought experiment, one that compared what quantum physics predicted against what hidden variables allowed. The math was clear. If local realism were true, certain limits could never be broken. But if quantum theory held, those limits, now called Bell inequalities, could be violated. It was like drawing a circle around the classical world and asking, does reality live inside this boundary or far beyond it? And when scientists began to run these tests, years later, with lasers and detectors and entangled photons, the results were stunning. Again and again, the Bell inequalities were broken. The universe, it seemed, didn't follow the rules we expected. No hidden variable theory that was local, meaning no faster-than-light communication, could explain what they saw. Something else was happening. A deeper kind of connection. One that defied separation. One that whispered, across time, we are not parts. We are patterns. And that was the bell. That silent, mathematical bell that rang through the halls of physics and into the stillness of our understanding. Its echo is still spreading, because Bell's theorem is more than a test. It's a curtain pulled back. It tells us that reality, as deeply as we can measure it, doesn't behave like tiny billiard balls. It behaves like a woven whole, where measurement here affects outcomes there, not because of messaging, but because the two were never truly apart. And so, the spooky action that Einstein resisted wasn't a flaw. It was a feature, a thread in the larger tapestry. You lie here now, in the hush of night, and you begin to feel what that means. That space, the empty stretch between stars, between atoms, between thoughts, may not be empty at all. It may be full of unseen threads, of quantum potential, of connectedness that isn't distance bound. And you are part of it, not above it, not outside it, but gently held within it. When you breathe in, you move the fabric. When you wonder, you touch the weave. Bell's theorem doesn't explain how the universe does this, but it tells us it must, that no classical picture, no system of hidden causes that respects local space can account for what happens. So reality must be stranger. And that's not frightening. It's beautiful, because it means we are more connected than we realized. that light years can't separate what is fundamentally one. That measurement isn't discovery alone, it's creation, it's participation, and in that way, you are a co-author of the world. Each time you look, you help collapse a wave. You shape the unfolding. Bell showed us that the universe doesn't just unfold to us, it unfolds with us. Together. You imagine it now. A vast sky, full of stars and silence. And somewhere, a ripple, a ring, not of metal, but of truth. It moves without sound, without speed, and yet you feel it in the alignment of particles, in the symmetry of laws, in the soft coherence of existence. This is what Bell revealed, not a trick, a whisper, a reminder that behind all separation, there may be unity, that reality is not built from bricks, but from echoes, that even when far apart, some things still ring together. You are not alone. Your thoughts, your choices, your very awareness, they are threads in a larger story. They matter, not because you force the universe, but because you are of it. A note in its song, a bell in its hand. And tonight, as you sink deeper, you hear the last soft chime, a reminder that even time itself may not be what it seems. Because if space can be transcended, what of time? Can the past and future entangle too? Can the arrow bend? Oh, and so you float onward, toward a deeper riddle. What if the future can echo into the present? What if cause and effect aren't so simple? In the next chapter, you'll begin to explore the mystery of time's unfolding pulse. The night is soft again, the air still, your body at ease beneath a blanket of stars. Eyes closed, yet somehow open, ready to wander deeper, not across the surface of the world, but down into its threads. And tonight, you follow light. It seems so simple, doesn't it? A ray, a beam, a flick of brightness that crosses space in an instant. But light is not simple. It is the quiet trickster of the universe, a messenger that obeys every law while bending our sense of truth. It is fast, yes, the fastest anything can be, but it is also mysterious. You begin with a single photon, a particle of light, so tiny yet full of energy, not just a speck, but a wave too, spreading across space like a ripple on a pond. Wave and particle, two faces of one being. Light never settles for one role. It is always both. And nowhere is this clearer than in the most enchanting of experiments. You float now into a dream of lenses, mirrors, and slits. The double slit experiment. Picture it. A barrier stands in the path of a light beam, cut by two thin slits. Beyond it, a screen, waiting to record the pattern light makes. You expect two bright bands, two shadows of where the light passes through. But what you get is interference. Waves crossing waves, forming fringes, bright where they align, dark where they cancel out. Light behaves like water here, like ripples in a pond. But then you dim the light, send photons one at a time, and still, over time, the same wave pattern builds, as though each particle goes through both slits at once. as though it interferes with itself. And you pause. How can that be? How can one photon walk two paths? So you try to watch. Place a detector by the slits. See which slit the photon chooses. And now, the pattern vanishes. No more interference. No more wave. The photon chooses a path and acts like a particle again. Just by observing, you've changed the outcome. Light, it seems, responds not only to barriers, but to questions, to the presence of attention. You breathe this in slowly. Let it settle in your thoughts. Because this is no trick. It has been repeated, confirmed, extended, and each time it shows reality doesn't always unfold until we engage with it. The path is not fixed. The photon chooses only when pressed. You drift deeper now into a quieter layer of this light maze. The quantum eraser experiment, a variation more subtle, more strange. Here, entangled photon pairs are created. One goes toward the double slit. The other goes a different way, to a detector that may or may not record which path its twin took. And somehow, if the which path information is truly erased, even after the first photon hits the screen, the interference pattern returns. It's as if the photon's past was rewritten by a future choice, as if time itself is part of the maze. And you wonder now, what does it mean for light to hold this mystery? Is the world real before we look at it? Or does reality bloom only in response? You're not alone in asking. Physicists, too, have puzzled. Some say it's a matter of information, that when no path is known, all possibilities remain open. Others speak of decoherence, the fragile dance of quantum states, shattered by interaction. Still others point to many worlds, that all outcomes occur, and what we see is just the path we land on. But none of these answers diminish the wonder, because the truth remains. Light, the very thing by which we see, does not show itself easily. It hides until the moment is right. It waits to choose. It dances with time and space, as though they are soft suggestions, not fixed laws. And perhaps that's the heart of it. Light is not just how we see. It is how the universe expresses uncertainty, how it reveals possibility. Each photon is a question in flight. Each wave, a map of all paths not yet taken. You think now of your own life. How often have you stood at a crossroad, wondering what would happen if you chose differently? How often has memory rewritten the past in the soft ink of hindsight? You, too, are a pattern that unfolds through choice, not a straight line, but a labyrinth. And like the photon, you carry all paths inside you until the moment you decide. You turn gently now to the structure of space itself, because light does more than trick us in experiments. It shapes how we understand space and time. Einstein taught us this, that the speed of light is constant, no matter who watches, no matter how fast they move. And from that one rule, the fabric of space-time reshapes. Time slows for moving observers. Lengths contract. Simultaneity dissolves. All because light holds its speed sacred. It is the silent ruler, by which all clocks are set, the boundary that no thing can cross. It is not just a particle or a wave. It is the frame that holds the universe's stage. And you? You live inside that light-drawn stage. You measure your days by sunlight. You mark your moments by the rhythms of photons bouncing in your eyes. Even now, as you rest in darkness, your mind is sculpted by the memory of light, by the paths it took and the ones it didn't. You are built of responses, of perceptions, of flickers and reflections. You are not separate from the light. You are its echo, its labyrinth made flesh. So sleep now, inside that wonder. Let the maze unravel around you, soft and silver. Let the paths fold and open as photons do, always moving, never certain until asked. And as you drift, feel how the world is less about things and more about questions, less about knowing and more about listening. Because the light doesn't demand answers, it invites attention. And in that space between seeing and seen, the universe waits and wonders with you. And in the distance, another light glows, not from a lamp or laser, but from life itself. In the next chapter, you'll follow that shimmer into the first fragile molecules and the memory they began to carry. Tonight, your body feels heavy in the gentlest way, weighted not by worry, but by warmth, a soft grounding, a return. Your breath moves slowly. The edges of the world blur, and in the stillness, you notice your hands, open, at peace, resting like quiet vessels at the end of two long rivers. Your arms, your blood, your life, and inside them, beneath the skin, beneath the warmth, something wondrous stirs. Not a heartbeat, not a muscle twitch. Something smaller, quieter, more strange. Entanglement. Not just out there, in experiments or distant particles spinning through space, but here, in you, in your very hands. You begin to imagine it now. Zoom in, past skin and cell, past molecule and atom. You arrive at the edge of knowing, at particles. Little flickers of energy existing not in isolation, but in relation, in entanglement. Quantum entanglement. Two particles, no matter how far apart, sharing a single fate. Measure one, and the other shifts. Instantly. No message, no delay. Like a whispered thought that leaps between minds. In physics labs, we've done this. Split photons, light particles, so they remain linked. Send them miles apart. Measure one's spin, and the other answers. Not because they talk, because they were never really two. They were always one thing, one system, stretched across space. And so now, you lie in the hush of night and wonder how many of your atoms are entangled with each other, with the world, with distant things you'll never see again. Science is cautious. Entanglement is fragile, easily lost when particles interact with their environment. Decoherence, we call it, a kind of unraveling, but sometimes it lingers. In photons passing through your eyes, in electrons traveling down your nerves, in superconductors, in qubits, in crystals of diamond, in the very tools we now build to measure the world. Quantum computers are not just machines. They are entanglement engines. They store data not as bits, zeros and ones, but as quantum states woven together, entangled. This makes them powerful, unimaginably so, and it makes them fragile too. Breath of heat, a flicker of noise, can collapse their delicate threads. But in your hands, nature does something similar. Your cells, your DNA, your thoughts, they all arise from interactions too subtle to see. And while not all are entangled in the strict quantum sense, the pattern remains: interdependence, coherence, unity. It makes you wonder, are you, too, a quantum system? In part, yes. Every atom in your body follows quantum rules. Every bond that holds you together arises from wave functions, from probability and presence. You are made of uncertainty, and yet you are here, real, felt, alive. How? Because even in uncertainty, there is order. Even in entanglement, there is meaning. You turn your attention inward. Picture the particles in your hand, the electrons spinning, the quarks within protons, the delicate balance of forces unseen. They exist not in isolation, but in a great web, and the web does not stop at the boundary of your skin. Particles collide in your body that once came from stars. Photons enter your eyes from galaxies long gone. The atoms in your bones were born in ancient explosions. Their fates joined with the story of the universe itself. So entanglement, you realize, is not just a trick of physics. It's a reminder that everything you are is touched by everything else. The breath you take was once in trees. The water you drink has been inside clouds and oceans and other living beings. And in every exchange of breath, of light, of heat, there is connection, not always measurable, not always preserved, but felt. You think now of the experiments that made entanglement real, of Bell's theorem and the violations of its boundaries, of quantum teleportation, where the state of a particle is transmitted across space using entanglement and classical data. Teleportation, not of mass, but of information, the essence, the quantum fingerprint, copied and recreated elsewhere. And you wonder, what if consciousness, too, is an echo of entanglement? What if memory is not stored in fixed locations, but in waves? In relationships? It is still speculation. The science is young, but even without answers, the question feels like light. It opens. It softens. You rest your hands again. Feel their weight, their stillness. Inside them, motion. Inside motion, mystery. And within mystery, a kind of comfort. Because what entanglement truly offers is not control, not even understanding, but that two things can be so deeply joined that space no longer separates them, that one event can echo in another without sound, without signal. You think of love now, of memory, of the strange ways we stay connected, to those who are far. And perhaps you realize we've always known. Long before quantum theory, humans felt it, the pull across distance, the knowing without words, the comfort of presence even in absence. Maybe entanglement was never just physics. Maybe it was always a metaphor too. And tonight, as you drift in the arms of sleep, you carry that metaphor like a hidden thread, a quiet link between you and the world. You are not a closed system. You are a constellation of experiences entangled with the lives you've touched, the ideas you've carried, the atoms you've borrowed. You will wake tomorrow in a body made of stars, holding echoes of everything you've seen. But for now, just rest. Let your hands hold the weightless threads of what connects all things. Let your breath slow to the rhythm of the world. Let your mind float through the web that binds. Oh, and just as one connection fades, another begins. For what are these entangled particles without the time they share? In the next chapter, you'll follow the strange rhythms of time itself, where clocks run slow and the universe stretches across moments. Tonight, your body is still, your thoughts are soft, and your breath is a gentle tide. You feel something close, though there is no sound, a presence, perhaps imagined, perhaps not. It feels like a whisper from far away, not through air, but through something deeper, something beneath space. You drift now into a dream of communication, but not the kind you know. No phones, no fiber optics, no satellites blinking in the sky. This is a different kind of message, a deeper kind of link. A message made not of signals, but of sameness. This is quantum communication, and it begins, as always, with entanglement. Two particles, prepared in perfect symmetry, each a mirror to the other. Measure one, and you know the other, even if it is light years away. This does not send information in the way your voice does, or your fingers on a keyboard, but it does something stranger. It shares information across distance without sending it. Quiet connection. Thread stretched across space. And you imagine now how this might work. Two people, not so different from you, stand far apart. Each holds a box. Inside, a particle entangled with the other. They open the boxes, measure their particles. What one finds, the other knows. Not because one has sent the answer, but because they both held part of the same whole. And from this idea comes something beautiful, quantum key distribution, a way of creating an unbreakable code. The two people share entangled particles. By comparing parts of their results, they know if anyone has listened in. Because in quantum physics, to observe is to disturb. Any eavesdropper breaks the thread. And so they know, with certainty, if the message is secure. This is not just theory, it is already real. Quantum communication has been tested across cities, across satellites, even across hundreds of kilometers through fiber optic cables. China's Messias satellite sent entangled photons from space to ground, proving that quantum links can reach through the sky. The future, you realize, is arriving in silence, a world where information is no longer carried but entangled, where messages aren't sent but shared. And you wonder, what does it feel like to be entangled with someone? To sense their joy before a word is said? To understand, not from signs, but from stillness? Perhaps quantum physics only reminds us of what we've always known, that true connection requires no noise, just presence and trust. You float now into the quantum internet, not a web of wires, but a network of entangled particles. Quantum repeaters, devices that maintain fragile connections over vast distances. Quantum memories that store entangled states without letting them slip. All of this to build a future where information is secure, instant, and invisible, not faster than light, never violating causality, but deeper, more elegant. And in this future, you are not just a receiver, you are part of the fabric. Your devices, your systems, perhaps even your thoughts, one day woven into this delicate web, because communication is not only about speaking, it is about resonance, about finding what already exists between 2 points. Even now, you feel it, calm, settling over you, as though this moment was waiting for you, as though somewhere else, someone is thinking of you at the exact same time. That's what quantum entanglement teaches. That separation may be an illusion. That space is not a barrier, that we are always, somehow, reaching. You turn your thoughts now to teleportation, not of matter, but of states. In quantum teleportation, a particle's identity, its spin, its phase, its whole being is transferred to another particle far away, not copied, not sent, rebuilt. The original is destroyed, and the new one becomes the same. It requires three things: entanglement, a classical message, and a willingness to let go. And doesn't that feel familiar? You think of how you share yourself in the world, how each story you tell, each memory you give is a kind of teleportation. You let go of something inside you, and it takes shape in someone else. Not perfectly, not entirely, but close enough to feel like connection. And in this way, quantum communication is not so different from human love: delicate, exacting, full of risk, and worth it. Because in every entangled pair, there is vulnerability. The tiniest disturbance can break the bond. But when it holds, when it works, it feels like magic, like two things breathing together across time. You come back now to your own body, to your breath, your stillness. You imagine the photons in your eyes, the electrons in your nerves. They, too, move in silence, sending messages without words. Within your own skin, you are a universe of communication. Your heart speaks to your brain in rhythms. Your brain speaks to your body in sparks. Each part of you entangled with the rest. So you are not waiting for the quantum future. You are already living it. Each breath, a quiet message. Each thought, a shared thread with the world around you. And as you drift now deeper into sleep, you carry with you a strange comfort that in the smallest spaces, beneath noise and form, there is always connection, always something waiting to be felt, not transmitted. Because in the quantum world, to know is to be, and to be is to belong. Dun. And as silence wraps around you, a pulse begins to rise, not from light, but from time. For next, you'll step into the rhythm of spacetime itself, where clocks tick strangely, and your body learns how time stretches across the stars. Tonight, as the world settles down, you find yourself drifting into a garden not made of soil and stone, but of wonder, a garden of light and leaf, of stillness and mystery. And in this dream of green, the air feels strange, not heavy, but charged. You are not alone here. All around you, the garden breathes, not just with wind, but with purpose. Every blade of grass, every curl of a fern moves to a rhythm you can almost hear. And as your eyes adjust, you begin to see it, the quantum garden. Not fantasy, not metaphor, but real. A place where life uses the rules of the very small to grow, to sense, to thrive. You've always known that nature is elegant, that seeds turn to trees, that flowers turn toward light, that birds fly thousands of miles without getting lost. But what you may not have known until tonight is that some of this grace may be quantum, and it begins with light, sunlight, golden, generous, constant, the source of almost all life on earth. And plants, those silent alchemists, catch it, not with nets or jars, but with molecules, delicate clusters called light harvesting complexes. Inside these complexes, photons, particles of light, begin a strange journey. They must find their way to the reaction center of a plant cell where the energy will be converted, stored, shared. But here's the mystery. Instead of choosing one path, the photon seems to explore all paths at once, like ripples on a pond, spreading through a network and then interfering with themselves until the shortest, most efficient path merges. This is quantum coherence, a fleeting state where particles behave like waves and waves behave like choices. It lasts only femtoseconds, trillionths of a second. But in that blink, a plant makes a perfect decision over and over, millions of times, all from a flower growing by your window. You smile now because you realize the universe has always been smarter than it looks. Even the simplest things, a leaf, a moss, a blade of grass, may use quantum tools without ever knowing their names. You walk further now through this garden. Beneath the leaves, you hear a flutter, a bird, small, purposeful, mysterious. It takes off and vanishes into the sky. A migratory bird, capable of crossing oceans, navigating with no maps, no stars, no GPS. How? One idea, a bold and beautiful one, is quantum sensing. Inside the eye of the bird may lie a molecule that responds to magnetic fields. When struck by light, it enters a quantum state, and somehow This quantum state is sensitive to Earth's magnetic field. The bird may not know it's using quantum physics, but it feels direction, not as thought, but as instinct, as a knowing that lives in the wings. And just like that, quantum communication is no longer just for labs. It's inside beaks and feathers, inside the flight of wild geese. At dusk, in this garden, you begin to feel a new kind of reverence, because quantum biology is not a separate science. It is a hidden layer beneath the life you already know. In your nose, some scientists suggest smells are detected not by shape, but by the vibration of molecules, as if your cells can listen to the frequencies of things. Quantum tunneling, a process where particles pass through barriers they shouldn't cross, may help enzymes speed up life's reactions. And in your own brain, some whisper there may be coherence, entanglement, weirdness at work. We don't yet know for sure. The line between quantum and classical is blurry. But isn't that the lesson of this garden? That the deepest truths are not always visible. That under every root, every wing, every cell, something strange is blooming. You stop by a flower now, its petals open wide. To the night sky, you wonder what it knows, how it senses light, how it knows when to bloom. You realize we often think of the quantum world as distant, as something in labs and thought experiments. But the truth is, you carry it with you. You are a garden, too. Your body is made of molecules. Your molecules dance with probabilities. The processes that sustain you, digestion, respiration, cell division, all rest on foundations you cannot see. It is humbling and beautiful to know that even when you sleep, there is a tiny garden inside you doing quantum work so that you may dream. Tonight, that dream deepens. The garden stretches on, a web of roots, of ideas, of questions. Because this is not the end of the path. There are still things to wonder. How much of life depends on the unseen? How much intelligence is written in the pattern, not the part? And can we learn to listen more gently, to notice what hides beneath the surface? You feel the soil of this place, not real soil, but the fertile ground of curiosity. And you understand, to study the world is not to explain it all away. It is to kneel beside it with open hands and ask softly, what else lives here? Because even the smallest garden may hold galaxies of strangeness. Even the tiniest leaf may carry echoes of a greater design. And as you lie here, body quiet, mind at peace, you know something simple and profound. The universe doesn't just allow life. It makes life with the strangest tools. And sometimes it plants its secrets where only stillness can find them. But beyond this garden, beyond leaf and molecule, is something even more personal. A story not of plants or birds, but of time itself and how it touches your every cell. In the next chapter, you'll follow that flow, from one breath into the infinity of time. Tonight, your breath slows, the world softens, and in the hush between heartbeats, you feel it, a longing gentle and endless, like the sea at night. It's not the kind of love you see in films. It's quieter, deeper, older. You turn inward and downward, and you find yourself drifting into the world of the very small, the quantum world, where connection is not limited by space or time. Here, things do not meet by chance. They are prepared, entangled. Two particles, once touched, become forever part of each other's story. No wire, no signal, no messenger. Only knowing. When one is measured, the other responds instantly, even across galaxies. Not by traveling, by being shared. It sounds like a miracle. It sounds like poetry, and perhaps it is. Physicists call it non-locality, but tonight you call it something simpler, a love story. Because in this strange dance, one particle can never forget the other, no matter how far they drift, no matter how alone they seem. And you wonder, what if people are like that too? What if we carry echoes of those we've touched, long after the words have faded? What if connection is not something we make, but something we are? You walk now through imagined stories, not fantasies, but metaphors for what the math suggests. You picture two photons born in the heart of a distant star. They are created in a moment of perfect balance, their polarizations entangled. One streams left, the other right, never meeting again. But they remain aware. If you touch one, you change the other, not by force, not by energy, but by intimacy. They are lovers without letters, friends who never speak, yet always know. And here on Earth, we've recreated this magic. In labs, in glass chambers, we create entangled pairs. We separate them. We test them. We marvel. And every time, they remind us, you don't need closeness to be connected. Just shared beginnings. Just memory etched into being. You rest now beneath this idea. The idea that at your smallest, you may be less of a body and more of a relationship. That atoms are not islands, they are networks. Each particle a thread in a greater weave. And that perhaps somewhere in your being, you carry an entanglement with someone, somewhere, not proven, not measured, but felt, a sense that you're not truly separate, that the world is not built of things, but of relationships. You think now of Romeo and Juliet, not as humans, but as electrons, paired in spin, but pulled apart. When one collapses, the other does too. And there's tragedy in that, but also beauty, because it means that what we do matters, not just to us, but to those we are entangled with, even across space, even across lifetimes. In quantum mechanics, there is a principle called monogamy of entanglement. It means that if two particles are deeply entangled, they cannot be equally entangled with others. True connection is exclusive, focused, intimate. You cannot be everywhere. You cannot share everything. And so you choose. And in choosing, you shape the universe. Isn't that what love is? Not being everything to everyone, but being everything to someone. And now your thoughts drift to quantum teleportation, not of bodies, but of states. One particle's full identity is transferred to another far away. The original must vanish. The new one takes its place. To send, you must surrender. To receive, you must become. Isn't that how it feels to share your heart? To love someone truly is to let part of yourself change, to vanish in the best way, to become something you could not be alone. These are not metaphors anymore. They are patterns. They are poems written in the mathematics of reality. And you, small, warm, breathing you, are part of that math. Your molecules, your memories, your thoughts, all made from particles that once danced in ancient stars. They were entangled, perhaps, long before you were born. And yet here they are, inside you, writing your story. You do not need to be a scientist to feel it. The closeness of someone who is far, the pull of a memory with no sound, the warmth of being understood without a word. These are not illusions. They are entanglements you can't measure, but you can live. You return now to your own skin, to your own heart, and you wonder, what stories are your particles telling? Who are they still linked to? What pieces of the universe do you carry quietly with you? A parent's gaze, a friend's laughter, a lover's silence. Maybe all those things have left imprints not only in your mind, but in your matter, in the spin of your electrons, in the hum of your atoms. You are not just remembering them, you are still resonating with them, still singing the same quantum song. And as you drift now deeper into sleep, you smile. Because in this quiet world, the boundaries blur between self and other, between here and there, between now and forever. And though you close your eyes, you feel the connection remain. You are not alone. You never were. Somewhere, something, or someone feels your being echo across the night. Ah, and as your heart rests in this strange, eternal closeness, a new question begins to glow. Could time itself be woven through your very atoms? Next, you'll begin to see you are not just made of matter, you are made of time. Tonight, as you rest your head and let the noise fall away, imagine the greatest silence that ever was. No wind, no voice, no stars, not even darkness, for darkness requires space to hold it. This silence is before time, before anything could move, or measure, or remember. And in that hush, so deep it presses against the edges of thought, a point of everything waits. This is the beginning, the true beginning, the universe, before it became a universe, no larger than a grain of sand, and yet holding all that would ever be, not just stars and planets, but music and laughter, oceans and oak trees, dreams and mathematics. You, all of it, somehow, inside this single, trembling moment, a singularity, not a place, but a condition, where density becomes infinite, and the laws of physics, our beloved rules of gravity and time, fold inward and blur. You're not floating in this place. There is no space to float in. You're not counting time here. There is no time to count. only potential, the quiet ache of becoming. Then, a release, an exhale. The beginning is not an explosion, not fire and fury, but an unfolding, a cosmic bloom. From that singularity, space-time stretches. Light is born. The Big Bang, not a bang, but a letting go, a sudden generosity of being. Energy fills the emptiness, and the emptiness, so eager to become something, accepts the gift. You drift now through this newborn universe, still smaller than a fingertip, but already expanding so fast, so vast, beyond comprehension. You might ask, what was it expanding into? But that question belongs to space, and space did not exist until now. It is not expanding into anything. It is expanding into itself, a balloon inflating, where the inside creates the outside as it grows. Within minutes, the universe cools just enough for protons and neutrons to form. Tiny, humming clusters. Too hot, still for atoms. Too raw for stars. But patient. This early universe is thick, a fog of light and particles. And for 380,000 years, it remains opaque. Light cannot travel far without being scattered like sunlight through clouds. Then one day, clarity. Electrons settle into orbit, atoms form, and suddenly the universe becomes transparent. Light escapes, and that first light still travels now. We call it the cosmic microwave background, a ghostly whisper from the past, reaching our telescopes like an ancient lullaby. You can almost hear it now. Soft, steady, filling all space equally. A light older than stars, older than galaxies, older than questions. You move through this growing cosmos as it begins to sculpt structure. Gravity pulls. Tiny ripples in matter become seeds. Seeds of galaxies, of clusters and voids, of spirals and collisions. A dance begins, unfolding over billions of years. From hydrogen clouds come stars. From stars, heavier elements. From those elements, worlds. Your world. But none of this could have happened if the early universe had been slightly different. If the expansion had been faster, it would have flown apart, too thin for stars to form. If it had been slower, it might have collapsed back into itself. But it balanced, somehow, perfectly enough to allow time and space and life. There's a name for this strange balance. Cosmic fine-tuning. And it invites wonder. Not because it proves anything mystical, but because it makes room for a universe that is just stable enough to contain music and thought. And you, lying still beneath the stars tonight, listening to its story. You imagine now the atoms in your hand, each one a traveler, each one forged in the heart of stars that burned before Earth was born. Some atoms in your body are older than your planet, older than the oceans, older than memory itself. And before that, they were energy, light, motion. And before that, they were part of that tiny universe, that single point, that silence. You carry that moment inside you. You are, quite literally, a continuation of the Big Bang, not separate, not after, but part. And this changes how you think of yourself, not as small, not as insignificant, but as ancient and necessary. A ripple that could only happen because the universe allowed it. And here you are, dreaming of the beginning at the edge of night, letting your mind return to when the universe was small, when it had no shape, no color, no name, only the desire to become. You feel now that same desire within you, not for grand things, but for presence, to be part of the unfolding, to feel rather than to prove, to rest rather than to chase. And so you breathe. You let yourself be a little universe, still expanding, still unfolding, still listening. And as you float in that thought, you begin to sense a thread, a mystery not yet touched. For everything you've imagined has moved through time. But what is time? Not the ticking of clocks, nor the hours of the day, but something deeper, something you are made of. What if you are not simply in time, but composed of it? What if in every cell, in every heartbeat, there is a rhythm echoing the pulse of the cosmos? Let's follow that rhythm. Let's walk into the next mystery, where time is not just a measure, it's the very fabric of your being. Not long ago, you drifted through the silence of a newborn universe. You watched it stretch and soften, unfolding from a single point of light. You felt time begin, not just as something to count, but as something you carry. And now, in this final quiet chapter, you begin to see that you are not just shaped by the universe, you are still entangled with it. Not metaphorically, not poetically, but truly, deeply, physically. As you lie here, in your body made of stardust, your atoms remember. They were born together, forged in the same stars, dancing in ancient clouds, before Earth had oceans. And some of them, yes, even now, remain entangled. There's a strange truth in quantum mechanics. When two particles become entangled, they do not just share information, they share identity. They act not as two, but as one. No matter the distance, change one, and the other reflects that change instantly, as if space had no meaning between them, as if they whisper across the fabric of the cosmos without ever needing to speak aloud. You are not a bystander to this. You are not separate from the quantum world. You are made of it. And so you carry within you entangled particles paired perhaps with others half a world away, or floating in the atmosphere, or buried in the soil. Entanglement is not a rare magic. It is the natural consequence of how things begin together. And everything began together. You feel that now as more than physics. You feel it as belonging, as the opposite of loneliness. You are connected in ways your senses cannot detect, but your being can somehow remember. A photon from the sun strikes your skin. It warms you, but also it may leave behind an entangled trace. That photon was born in the sun's fiery core hundreds of thousands of years ago, struggling upward through layers of plasma until it finally escaped and traveled 8 minutes across space, only to kiss your cheek and change you forever. And when it does, it may leave behind a partner somewhere, somehow entangled. So you are more than skin and thought. You are woven into the sky. Your brain, with its billions of firing neurons, is an orchestra of quantum effects. Some physicists still debate how deep the entanglement goes. But we know this much. Your thoughts, your memories, your very perception of now is built on particles interacting in ways that defy simple logic. Sometimes, when you look at someone, you feel seen. When you touch a hand, you feel a shiver of recognition. Maybe it's love. Maybe it's coincidence. But maybe, just maybe, you're remembering what physics never forgot. That we are not separate observers staring at a cold universe. We are the universe, learning to look back at itself. And that gaze, that act of observation, changes everything. Quantum mechanics tells us the moment you observe a particle, its behavior changes. It chooses a path. It resolves its uncertainty. And perhaps when you look at someone with love or wonder or curiosity, you help resolve the uncertainty within them too. You bring them into focus, into clarity. You entangle not through force, but through awareness. That, too, is a kind of physics. So let yourself rest tonight in this strange and beautiful truth. You are not drifting alone through the stars. You are part of their rhythm, their memory, their quantum choreography. The atoms in your lungs may be paired with atoms halfway across the galaxy. The photons bouncing in your eyes may be the echoes of long-forgotten cosmic dances. Even your thoughts leave traces, waves rippling outward in fields we can barely measure. And those ripples might just reach someone else. You're more than you think, not in a grand, heroic sense, but in a quiet, steady way. A particle, a poem, a pattern that could not exist without the rest of the world moving with you. Entanglement isn't just about physics. It's about meaning. It tells you that separation is often an illusion, that the boundaries we draw between mind and body, between self and other, between here and there, are useful, but not final. Some part of you is always somewhere else, somewhere old, somewhere wide, somewhere deeply known. And maybe this explains why you feel sudden emotion for places you've never been, or people you've only just met, or ideas that make you ache without knowing why. Entanglement lingers. It carries not just data, but memory, pattern, possibility. And while the full story is still unfolding, you are part of its telling. Every breath, every kindness, every quiet moment of listening to the stars. You are not here to solve the universe. You are here to feel it. Be an echo of the beginning, a partner to the present, a thread in the grand tapestry that has no edge. So rest now, not as someone falling asleep at the end of a journey, but as someone becoming still so they may continue unfolding in another form. You are entangled still with stars, with strangers, with tomorrow. And that may be the softest and most scientific kind of magic there is. Because the story never really ends. It only waits to be observed again. And maybe next time you'll feel the whisper of connection before you even open your eyes. Thank you for wandering through the cosmos with me tonight, for letting curiosity guide you even as your eyes grew heavy and the stars tucked you in. In this quiet corner of the universe, you've traveled across time, through tangled particles and newborn galaxies, and back again to the stillness of your own breath. I'm so glad you are here. If the world feels too large sometimes, remember, you're already part of it, entangled, connected, exactly where you're meant to be. So rest now. Let the questions wait. Let the silence wrap around you like a soft blanket of light. And if you'd ever like to drift through space and wonder again, I'll be right here. Until then, sleep well and dream deeply. Good night.